Welcome to this special edition of Arirang News. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. Acting President and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo promised his utmost to stabilize South Korea's domestic situation and diplomatic relations as he took over President Yoon Suk-yeol's executive duties on Saturday. This came after Parliament voted to pass the motion on impeaching Yoon over his martial law decree. Our Oh Soo-young explains.
The lights went out at the entrance of the nation's top office on Saturday, no longer reading "Welcome to the Presidential Office." This came after Parliament passed a motion to start impeaching President Yoon Suk-yeol, who ordered martial law on December 3rd. His duties were suspended as of 7:42 p.m. upon receiving the National Assembly's resolution at the Presidential Office. The next executive in line, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, assumed authority over state affairs, diplomacy and the military as acting president. Han hit the ground running as he presided over an emergency cabinet meeting, delivered a public address, and convened the National Security Council, pledging his utmost efforts to stabilize the country.
The government will adopt a humble stance, engage closely with the public, seek their cooperation, and maintain the trust of the international community. We'll ensure that you, the citizens, can feel reassured through steady and stable governance.
Han first stressed the importance of national security, calling for stronger military readiness to ensure no gaps in security and prepared to respond immediately to any crisis. He promised to make every effort as a whole government to maintain close alliances and trust with key partners, including the United States and their trilateral relations with Japan. Han also pledged to strengthen the government's response to support financial markets, public safety and order, and tailored support measures for vulnerable groups, as well as comprehensive disaster responses. With over 40 years of working in the civil service, Han has been credited for his leadership in handling national crises such as the Osong underpass disaster, the disrupted World Scout Jamboree last year, and the doctors' protests against medical reforms. In fact, the Prime Minister has experience of working for a caretaker government, having served as Chief of the Office for Government Policy Coordination under acting President Go-geon in 2004. Over the coming months, Han plans to work from the government complex in Gwanghwamun Central, Seoul, and receive reports from secretaries remaining at the Yongsan Presidential Office. The Constitutional Court has up to 180 days to make a ruling on Yoon, during which he may only retain the title, salary and privileges, such as the use of the official residence, vehicles, aircraft and security protection for the president. With his executive powers frozen after 2.5 years, President Yoon now appears to be gearing up to challenge the proceedings and insurrection charges against him, having said he will not give up but fight to the end. In a speech released after the impeachment vote, Yoon acknowledged the transfer of his powers to the PM, but indicated he will continue making his case.
저는 지금 잠시 멈춰 서지만 지난 2년 반 국민과 함께 걸어온 미래를 향한 여정은 결코 멈춰 서서는 안 될 것입니다. 저는 결코 포기하지 않겠습니다.
He claimed on Thursday the imposition of martial law was a legal act of governance aimed at protecting the constitutional order from the opposition's attempts to undermine democracy. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The impeachment motion passed at the National Assembly yesterday showed apparent defections from the ruling People Power Party. Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young shares the vote results and mixed reactions from the rival parties.
I hereby declare that the impeachment motion against President Yoon Suk-yeol has been passed.
The National Assembly on Saturday passed a second impeachment motion against President Yoon Suk-yeol. This comes 11 days after he declared martial law and just a week after the first impeachment motion had failed due to a boycott by ruling party lawmakers. All 300 lawmakers took part this time as the ruling People Power Party decided to participate in the vote while adopting a party consensus against impeachment. Despite the party consensus, the motion passed with 204 votes in favor, 85 against, 3 abstentions, and 8 invalid votes, meeting the required 2/3 majority or 200 votes. Assuming all opposition lawmakers voted in favor, at least 12 PPP members broke ranks or up to 23 when including abstentions and invalid votes. Since the vote was anonymous, it suggests that many lawmakers voted based on their personal convictions. The results brought mixed reactions from the rival parties. PPP leader Han Dong-un's leadership, which only began in July, is now on the brink of collapse. During a meeting held immediately after the vote, there were calls for accountability for Han's support of impeachment as well as demands for his resignation. However, Han reaffirmed his intention to stay and continue his duties as party leader. All of the party's 5 Supreme Council members on Saturday expressed their intent to resign to take responsibility. According to the party's rules, if 4 or more of the council members resign, the leadership is dissolved and an emergency leadership committee must be formed.
I was not informed beforehand, and I believe they were individual decisions made based on various considerations.
The party is planning to discuss the matter on Monday. Meanwhile, the opposition cheered and clapped as the motion passed during Saturday's plenary session. The main opposition Democratic Party, which led the push for the motion, called it a victory for the people and democracy.
The passage of this impeachment motion is a great victory for the people. The December 3rd martial law crisis remains unresolved. The Democratic Party will do its utmost to swiftly launch a special investigation into Yoon on insurrection.
Meanwhile, this marks the 3rd passage of an impeachment motion of a sitting president in South Korea's history, following those of former presidents Roh Moo-hyun in 2004 and Park Geun-hye in 2016. 신하영, Arirang News.
Now, the legal battle begins between President Yoon Suk-yeol and the impeachment motion. The two sides will make their cases at the Constitutional Court. While the law guarantees a decision by the court in 180 days, in the past 2 impeachment cases, it only took 2 to 3 months. Our Kim Do-yeon explains more.
All eyes are now on the Constitutional Court. At least 6 out of 9 judges will have to agree with the reasons behind President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment motion within the next 180 days by law. The legal fight is between President Yoon himself, who says he will fight to the end, and the National Assembly's impeachment motion. The chair of the Parliament's Legislation and Judiciary Committee, Chung Cheong-rae, will represent the side that's pushing for this impeachment.
If it weren't for the people who stopped the martial law forces, the National Assembly wouldn't have had the time to vote on lifting the emergency martial law, as guaranteed by the law. Today's impeachment motion was possible because of the people's protection.
The justices will review what's on the impeachment motion. First, was Yoon's declaration of martial law within the authority of the president granted by the Constitution, or did the reasons for the declaration fail to meet the criteria of a constitutional declaration? Also, the impeachment motion included an allegation of Yoon committing insurrection, arguing that his deployment of troops to the National Assembly to stop it from operating was an act of rebellion with the intent of undermining the constitutional order. There will be open public verbal arguments made by the two parties in court. Right now, there are 3 vacancies on the bench, which could cause a delay in the decision. All 3 are positions allotted for the National Assembly to recommend, and the Speaker of the National Assembly pledged they will be filled as soon as possible. Another factor also could delay the ruling of the Constitutional Court. According to Article 51 of the Constitutional Court Act, the adjudication proceedings can be suspended if a criminal proceeding is underway for the same cause as in the request for the impeachment. If the police or prosecution investigation over the martial law declaration directly targets President Yoon, then the impeachment motion review can be suspended. While there are 180 days to decide on the motion by law, the past 2 impeachments didn't take that long. It took the court 2 months to decide that the impeachment of President Roh Moo-hyun was not constitutional, and he went back to his post. It took 3 months for the court to decide Park Geun-hye's impeachment was according to the Constitution, effectively kicking off a presidential election season. The number of verbal arguments also varies between the past two cases, and while the president is required to be at the hearings, they can be excused if they provide a reason. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, acting President Han Duck-soo has assured U.S. President Joe Biden that the South Korean government is being run in accordance with the law and the Constitution, following President Yoon Suk-yeol's suspension. According to the acting president and prime minister's office, the two spoke on the phone on Sunday morning. Han added that the government will continue to implement its foreign and security policies without any setbacks and will strive to ensure that the ROK-US alliance remains steadfast and continues to develop further. President Biden expressed his appreciation for the explanation, reaffirming his trust in South Korea's democracy and commending its resilience. Last night, after the impeachment motion passed, there were some contrasting atmospheres at rallies across Seoul, with some in favor of impeachment and others defending President Yoon. Our An Sung-jin reports.
Screams stream out from the crowd. The moment President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment was announced as passed, the 200,000 protesters gathered in front of the National Assembly could not hide their excitement. K-pop songs blasted out as people cheered and waved their light sticks in celebration. More had joined protest rallies than the first impeachment vote last week, despite the freezing temperatures.
I am really happy that the impeachment motion was passed with such enthusiasm from the people, and I am excited about the new world that will unfold. I am hopeful that we can become a country where everyone lives together in harmony.
Meanwhile, the mood was different at rallies held near Gwanghwamun Square in support of President Yoon. People there sank in disbelief, expressing discontent, while some left as soon as the announcement was made. Conservative groups, including the Liberty Unification Party, had voiced that the declaration of martial law was a strategic political move, not a violation of the Constitution, and argued that the People Power Party should defend the president. Some protesters left the scene saying that with the Constitutional Court ruling still left, the game isn't over yet, and some even denounced the ruling party's lawmakers who voted in favor of the impeachment motion. Despite hundreds of thousands of people gathering to protest, there was little violence or accidents. The Seoul Metropolitan Government had placed more than 1,000 emergency personnel across protest sites and had monitored population clusters thoroughly. Regardless of the political split, only peaceful methods to express political dissent had been adopted. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Over in the U.S., President-elect Donald Trump has picked Richard Grenell, his former intelligence chief, as presidential envoy for special missions. Through a post on Truth Social, Trump said Grenell would be working, quote, in some of the hottest spots around the world, including Venezuela and North Korea. Trump added that Grenell would continue to fight for peace through strength while always putting America first. Grenell is a former U.S. ambassador to Germany and was the acting director of national intelligence during Trump's first term in office. This is all for now, but we will be back with more updates in our 6 p.m. newscast. Until then, goodbye.